See such a big turnout. It was more than I expected, and that's wonderful. So, so anyway, we have our speaker here, George Mesko. He was going to tell you about his new book, Confessions of a Refugee. So, George, I'll let you have the stage.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
I wanted to thank you to Eva as well for her generous invitation and for the group that you are interested in my humble story. I am a retired physician, and this is my fourth book, and I wanted to share a rather turbulent experience. What does it mean when you go for a trip and your trip turns to a lifetime journey? You know, so that's what happened. And we on August of 21st, just recently, 3 weeks ago, was 48 years that Czechoslovakia was invaded by the armies of the Warsaw Pact under the leadership of the Red Army, and that invasion hit us or reached us in Belgrade, at that time Yugoslavia, capital of Yugoslavia, where we were just returning from our vacation. Prior to this event, sometimes happen things which you don't even know how important these events will be, let's say, 10 years later, you know. And like that, that was in 1968, but in 1960 I was in charge of an institution for children's heart disease, where I cared for 120 children with 3 residents and 25 nurses and what. And at that time, suddenly it was in Sliač. I don't know if people know where it is. It's the middle of Slovakia. At that time, it was a rather well-known Sliač for its so-called curing waters, which were full of carbonate, and temperature of water was like almost 100 degrees. And so people since old ages were coming there for treating, quote unquote. The bottom line is that no spa was ever treated anybody for anything, you know, it is placebo. And so, well, that's true. And so I led that institute, and this is a book here. It's already published in Slovak, and it tells that Confession of a Refugee, and on the top of it there is a Statue of Liberty, which is attacked by a Soviet tank. Okay, and the book is I dedicated it to my wife because she struggled through the whole process of emigration and through the whole journey of our emigration, of our family. But in 1916, this institution, suddenly on a beautiful sunny day, a lady doctor of over 50 came, and she turned to be a doctor from United States, you know, very rare event. And she was actually doing some pediatrics in Boston, and so she wanted to see what behind the Iron Curtain, you know, what are these guys doing? And so she came to the lobby, and we had a local lady who was taking care of the front desk. And so the institution is actually picture number 1 in this book, and I will let you go around. Just please handle it in care, because that's the only copy what I have for the time being. And this was a former hotel which was established in 1850, but in 1950, when the rheumatic fever was rampaging in not only Slovakia but in all that area, so that institution was established by the government under the tutelage of the Children's Hospital in Bratislava. And so I was in charge of that, and this lady came and, what are you people doing here? And so the local lady, which we called Pani Čiamporová, a local lady with a kind of Slovak, a kind of kroj, how do you say it, kind of
national dress.
yeah, something like that. And that here is a lady who wants to see the physician in charge, you know. Okay, so I had a very beautiful office in that institution, which was called Slovensko. But on the time of Austria-Hungary, this hotel was called Hungary. You know, that was a nice switch. Anyway, so I accepted, the lady came in, she was like a little grayish hair, and so I had a very beautiful office with teak furniture and original pictures of so-called bourgeois painters who the communists before that threw out these pictures, and I found it in a cellar, and suddenly my office was beautiful, you know. And so I let her sit down, and we started our work. And so I took her first to the third floor, and it was, you know, unusual that in such an institution every room had just 2 beds for 2 children, like in hotel, you know, with a little lovely wash basin and what. And she was surprised. My God, what is it? And so I took her through the hotel and the nursing station and the dining room, you know, which was. We had an excellent manager lady, and really the institution was spick and span. And then I took her to the other 2 floors, and out of these 120 children, like half of them was very ill, you know. The rheumatic fever destroys the valves, and the heart was enlarged, and so she was surprised by what she had seen. And then I took her to the ground floor where we had a microbiology lab for streptococci to find out if the kids had the infection. And then I took her to the room where we do the EKG, and I did other things, and even we did, which was unusual, so-called, at that time there was no treadmill test, you know, I'm talking about 1960. The only thing was from USA was so-called Masters 2 footsteps, it was like 2 steps up, 2 steps down. And so I told our carpenter, so make for me a master footsteps. And when this doctor had seen it, oh my God, she was totally off. You know? These people, what are they doing here? And so a nice relationship developed. I was just married, so I introduced my wife, and she came in actually with her old friend for a cure for the old friend. And so she stayed there for a month, and we took her around. I had a car. And then when she was leaving, she told me, so when I'm coming back, what shall I bring you? You know, so I told her, bring me a stethoscope, an American stethoscope. And you know, it was not free, I have to pay. So next year when she came again with a gentleman who was like above 80, so she brought me a beautiful Rappaport stethoscope for $20. So, but I paid her a black course, you know, 1 to 40, 1 to 50. So for that stethoscope, she had a whole cure for 1 month. But when she was leaving, then she told me, look, I'm in Boston, I know from Children's Hospital, the professor and would you be interested to come to study? You know, I was then 38 years old or something like that. Well, I would, but you know, I'm behind the iron curtain. How can the chance is zero. I was not member of the Communist Party. And so she told me, look, I will do my part, and you try to do your part, you know. And so, indeed, she left. But in 1962, I was discharged from my position as a politically incorrect, you know, and I was almost sent to be a physician in charge of a general pediatric hospital in Banska Štiavnica. I don't know if people know. It's a small, lovely town, famous for the mining academy and what. But it was a small town, you know. But the patron of that institution in Sliač, she was also very impressed what I'm doing, and I passed my board in children's heart disease and what else. She said, well, it would be a pity this young guy to put him into the boondocks, you know. And she took me to the children's hospital as an assistant, which is not equal to assistant professor, but close. And indeed, we went to Bratislava then with my whole family. And then in 1965, suddenly I received an envelope. You know, envelope from Boston too. I already forgot for the lady. And I opened it up. It came from Harvard Medical School, and the picture is there with the emblem. And the professor is writing me, yes, you are invited for a fellowship. Blah, blah, wow, fantastic. But you have to do an exam, you know, so-called ECFMG, Educational Council for Foreign Medical Graduates, so that you can, during your training, you can deal with patients under the supervision of an American, you know, assistant professor or something like that. Well, I was like almost 50 years after my graduation. So I have to go back and start to study chemistry, physics, anatomy, pharmacology, microbiology, blah, 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 all that stuff. So it lasted me 1.5 years, you know. I had, there was a book, Ripins of Review of Medicine. And then I have to beef up my English, of course. So there is a little book from Eckersley, from which I studied English, that is an English course. And I was listening to BBC with my ear on the radio so that my neighbor would not hear me that I'm listening to Imperial radio, you know. Anyway, in 1967 I went to Prague, to the Cultural Center. I showed my papers. There was, you know, an American soldier, you know, at the entrance, and they took all this. And then we were 12 physicians in a larger room as this. Everybody has his table, his pencil, number 2, you know, and a booklet on the table. And then came the proctor and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. The lobby was beautiful. There was a coffee fountain and a Russian samovar. So I'm writing in my book that these two somehow were not fighting each other. The American coffee fountain and the Russian samovar. And they were very nice napkins with the title, "Be Sociable," you know. That was written on the napkin. And so this was all a different world, you know. So I took one napkin, and for years, till we emigrated, we went for emigration, I took it as a souvenir. Well, so we had 2 sessions, 3 sessions, 3-hour sessions. It was tough, you know. And on the second session, these were booklets, you know, the proctor came, you can open up your booklet, you can start to work, you know, and communication they were swirling some other guys around also. It was not like under socialism, you know. And so on the second session, we get the booklet with the pictures, you know, with the urine and X-ray and EKG and what. And I open up the picture and suddenly I see a male genitalia, black, with a huge kind of. Honey, I'm not saying anything.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. It's right there.
We can bleep it out of the brief.
With a kind of a lesion in the middle, you know. That was the first time in my career of 15 years that I have seen anything like that. And then in the third session, there was a question that there is a patient who has 2 feet and 3 inches and you know, there was a big stress for us. It was a different world. And I couldn't translate it quickly to the centimeters, you know. And so the guy was working on, could you tell me how much is 2 feet and 3 inches? I was sorry. That was it. Well, anyway, so we did the act, the whole, we were of course groggy. Then we went to there are pictures to a cabaret, Alhambra, the pictures are there. And I don't go to this detail, I came home. And in fall or almost Christmas, I received a paper that I passed, you know, with 80 points, language 2, you know, fantastic. Yeah, but I still was not a politically correct person, you know. So it was nothing from that. But then I wrote a paper which was published in a Swiss journal. And a reprint was asked by a German associate professor. And so I sent him the reprint and he liked it. And then I asked if I could apply for the so-called Humboldt stipend. Humboldt was like a German Darwin, something like that, but more into biology but also he was in South America and Africa and all that. And so I applied for that stipend, and just before we were going on our vacation, bang, I was rewarded in year 68, 69, you can go and study to West Germany, you know, and blah, blah, blah. But I left all the papers at home. We went to vacation to Adriatic, and at that time, you know, you people would not understand it, but in Yugoslavia already in 1948 dissociated itself from Stalin. You know, Tito's time, it was a big stuff, you know, that he is not going to overrule us, Stalin, and it was an international kind of stuff. And so when we went from socialist country to a kind of almost capitalist country, we had no money, you know, and so they had in Yugoslavia dinars. So but we had a nurse who came from Bački Petrovac, which was a Slovak community in Yugoslavia, and she told me, look, you can bring, if you bring over there these cigarette papers, I don't know if you people know what it is. It's like a little paper, very fine, where you put the tobacco and then roll it, you know, and you can smoke. So in a couple of months we collected like 25 boxes, you know, and the key to everything was that when I was in that Sliač, the government allowed me to buy a car, and the car, picture of the car is over there, small car, but car, you know, that's important, it was rolling. And so we went with a 2-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son. They were on the back seat, And the motor was in the back, so in the motor in 2 plastic bags we put the 25 boxes of cigarette paper, you know. It was like an atom bomb. And so we rode and went through Hungary. I don't want to go to the details, it's all there. And then we came to Belgrade. We had some friends there. No, I'm sorry. We came to that Slovak little village. It's very famous, actually. There was a Kolar Gymnasium and what. And so we delivered the 25 boxes and got dinars, you know. So we were pretty well. And so we went down to Budva. Budva is, if you know a little bit of, it's south of Dubrovnik. It's almost on the Albanian border. But it's a very beautiful place, you know, for sea, and there are the karst mountains. And so we rented a room. It was in a little garden where there were fig trees and very beautiful. So we spent a whole month there. And before we were trying to depart, that was the whole July, okay, just to give you a spatial framework. And then before we started to go backwards to Bratislava, we went for a day to a little island called St. Stephen. It's also in that book. And so we were swimming around there with the kids, and I was swimming close, and I had a very wide wedding ring, like I would say 7 millimeters. I don't know how much it is in inches, but quite wide, like a regular wedding ring, so it's triple wide. And as I was swimming in that water, suddenly the wedding ring came off my finger. I was jumping in, I lost my wedding ring, and I was running to my wife. Oh my God, look what she had, her wife, and of course in Slovakia, oh my God, what does that mean? You know, well, it's a bad omen, you know, and what, and the whole atmosphere turned kind of murky, you know, and or kind of unpleasant. But anyway, so we started to roll back. We went northward to Dubrovnik, and we spent there 2 weeks with our kids, and we then stayed one day in Sarajevo, where we went to see where the Gavrilo Princip killed the Ferdinand II and his wife before one place, kind of a restaurant. The name is over there. And so we came back to Belgrade to our friends on 19th of August, okay? And so we spent one day kind of resting. You know, 21st, our friend went to buy some fruit for kids, you know, and he comes back, you know, disturbed and well, you are not going to anywhere because Russia marched into Czechoslovakia, you know. And so we were totally, you know, shocked. We had no money, just for gas. And so, my God, what are we going to do now? And they were 50,000 Czechoslovak tourists just in Belgrade, you know.
Wow.
But tremendous demonstrations. And finally, we went with my friend before the parliament, and there was a Czechoslovak flag, and a quarter or 1/3 of the Czechoslovak government was in Belgrade also for vacation. So we were yelling and, you know, whatever, but, you know, nothing happened. You know, we were watching on TV how the tanks went to Prague, Bratislava, Košice, how they were shooting people. Oh my God, what are we going to do? So I was lucky that before I departed, a doctor from Yugoslavia came to our children's hospital. So I called him up, and he told me, go to the children's hospital in Belgrade to my friend, and indeed I went, and they were tremendously helpful, you know. The 50,000 people got lodging, food, gas, free, you know, everything. It was a fantastic humanitarian gesture of this Belgradian. And so, anyway, the Children's Hospital employed me as a pediatric cardiologist, and I was working there regularly, but you know, in third week I've seen, wow, this doesn't go anywhere. You know, the Russians are still there. We have these two kids. I went through the whole communist mishmash, you know, how they prosecuted you when I was ending my studies in medicine, then on the children's clinic in Košice, then in Sliač, and came, oh my God, I'm not going to back, mainly for the children, you know, for the future. And so I called up the German doctor, you know, whom I sent my reprint. I told him, look, I have a stipend, Humboldt stipend, for 1 year. If you can, I can go there and work for the stipend. It doesn't cost him anything, and I will work there. And so I told him, oh yes, it's very convenient for us. It was a small group, and so he told me, look, go to the German embassy and try to get the German visa, and let's roll. Well, indeed, in the September already, I went to before German embassy, where 500 Yugoslav blue-collar workers. Everybody wanted to go to Germany to work, you know, these guest workers. And what the hell I'm going to do here, you know? So I just rushed through the whole crowd, and suddenly a guy was coming out from the embassy. I've seen it according to his jacket that he's not local but German. And I spoke reasonably well. So I told him I'm a doctor from Czechoslovakia and I would like to go to Germany. And so he gave me his business card and told me, come back in an hour, you know. And you know, these are these events, you know, these chances. And I indeed came back and told him my story, that I have a Humboldt stipend, and where would you like to go? And he said, I have an invitation to Tübingen. It's an old famous university south in Bavaria, south of Stuttgart. And so Tübingen, I was studied there law, you know. So immediately there was this interchange, you know, we had something common, you know. And he told me, look, I have to verify everything, that you have the stipend, and call the professor and that. And indeed, in 1 week came back, I got the visa, you know, and then the Austrian visa, and we came now the departure from Belgrade, from our friends whom took care of us for 3 weeks, you know. It was very emotional, and it still is. And I turned on the car, you know, Judy was crying, and the lady and the Paul, or the other one, and turned on the car, and my nerves gave up, and I fell on the wheel, and I started to sob like a kid, you know. And it was just, I knew that I'm leaving my home, you know, your home sweet home, forever, you know. And then Judy was patting me on my shoulders, my daughter pulling my ears and said, Daddy, Daddy, why are you crying? So I kind of, you know, stood up as a man, a macho man, and pushed the pedal on gas, and we went. So the trip to Tübingen lasted 2 days, and when we were coming to the Austrian Alps, my machine, my motor, kind of didn't pull, you know, something is wrong with this car. It was brrr and what. But anyway, we rolled into Tübingen. The professor told me where is the Children's Hospital, and a sister, you know, a nurse was waiting on me. and he invited me, "Ja, Herr Doktor, schön willkommen, you are welcome." And we got 2 rooms, you know, for 4 of us, and they took very good care of us, you know, very good care. And so we stayed in Tübingen for almost a year, you know. And I was very active in the diagnostic work, these cardiac catheterizations, and then in spring, my dear mother came to see us, 81-year-old, you know, with my sister. So they spent with us 2 weeks, and it was very emotional. And so then on June 16th, we traveled to Köln with my, you know, all 6, and we flew from Köln to Kennedy Airport, you know. This was through a Catholic organization. They also sent us some pots and whatever, books and whatever in a bag, in a kind of a container. Anyway, we went to Kennedy Airport. Funny, you know, we came into the breakfast in the morning. We were all like European, you know, already well dressed because we earned some money. And we sat to the breakfast, and our kids were, my daughter was 3 and son was 5, so we expected that they will get some warm breakfast. They gave us ice milk, you know, with ice floating, you know. My God, ice milk. And I told the waitress that, could we get maybe warm milk? And she looked at warm milk. And then, well, it's not warm cocoa. Ah, yes, more cocoa. That's fine, fantastic. So everything was fine. Then we flew to Logan Airport, and then my lady doctor was waiting on me, you know. And as a fellow, you know, it was really wonderful. We had from June of 17, 2 weeks till July 1st, when I had to report that I have to start to work. And so for 2 weeks, for these 2 weeks, I was turned to by Children's Hospital in Boston and Harvard to international fellow, what meant that 1 week we were with one family, you know, and 1 week with another family. And during these 2 weeks, and we had to, this was for us something totally new, you know. We were just totally new. Before that, we had to go through screening, you know, in Frankfurt, and if I was not Communist Party member and all these things, if I would, then finished, you know, I don't go. And we had to go through health stuff, and you know, as Judy as well, and you know, when she went to X-ray, there were some other German girls who was girlfriend of the GIs who went to US, and so they went first for an X-ray, and Judy was sitting there, and the technician calls up, Judith! She was sitting, she's not nobody. Repeated again, you know, and 3rd time in German, Frau Mesko, you know, oh yeah, that's me. But anyway, so we were fellows for, and one week we were with a pediatrician from the Children's Hospital, another with a chief of ophthalmology. So we have to learn, they instruct to go to get an agency, you know. This was for us something totally foreign, you know. But they were trying to help because they knew that we were refugees. So and we were very lucky that we saved some money in Germany. The trouble was that at that time, in 1968, dollar and marks was 1 to 4. You know, So I had 10,000 marks, so it was $2,500,
Yeah.
but it was still a good money, you know. I tell, because my salary for first year as a fellow was $7,000 for 1 year, and I got $1,000 more because I had 2 kids, you know, but it was hard work. That was the whole trick. And so we went to agency, we rented a 2-bedroom apartment. They told us, go where the fellows are living and buy old furniture, you know. So we bought old furniture, and we bought some kind of material, and Judy was transforming it like new, and buying beds, and well, it was, and then I needed a car, you know. So the lady doctor offered me a Cadillac, a huge, for $500. Not her, but a friend from an old lady. Well, it went okay, well, I cannot drive this one, you know. So we went to an Italian car dealer, and I've seen we had a little Renault, what I showed you, but I seen a nice, large Renault 16, that was my dream. So I bought it as a new car. I don't know what I paid, $1,000 or whatever. Anyway, 6 months later, we went to a checkup to the Renault company. They told us that the speedometer was manipulated and it already had 3,000 miles. So that, you know, lesson for a refugee, you know. Anyway, so everything in 2 weeks, we had tremendous help, you know, moving of things, furniture from here to there. Totally unknown people from the hospital came, you know, from the group where I was then working for next.
Where was your apartment?
Excuse me?
Your apartment, was it in Boston itself?
In Brighton, yeah. That was our first, but then we moved to Longwood area, close to hospital, where, so I don't have to drive, you know, it was better for night calls and what. But anyway, so everything was settled, and my boss was originally a Hungarian refugee, you know, very famous pediatric cardiologist who came since he was of Jewish background. He came in 1936 or 7 or 8, something like that, you know, before, when Hitler came to the, and he had also his story, you know, he came with a boat from Southampton to America, and was befriended by an American, and he had some money, you know, and he told me, look, could you take my purse, and then after this, how do you call it, control, you know, you can hand it back to me, and, you know, indeed they went, and suddenly after he was, well, the guy disappeared with the money and everything. Oh my God, whatever. But next day he was lodged at YMCA, and that you know, the guy in the front said, somebody's looking for you. For me? Nobody knows me, you know. And the guy with the money showed up, found him, and gave him his purse back, everything, you know. But anyway, so I started to work at Children's. I was there for 4 years. These were very demanding years, but were my best years professionally. I published 4 papers in peer-reviewed best American cardiology journals, which was great, you know, and we made tremendous friendship. And so after 4 years, and again, I was totally, you know, when you were in socialism, so you are always assigned to somebody. You know, when I finished my medical school, you will go work there. You know, you don't have to look at it. You know, the state or the government will take care. The trouble is that when I finished my medical school, I didn't want them to go there. I wanted to go there, you know. I wanted to be a cardiologist, and they gave me assignment that I will go to general hygiene. That means look for the water, for the canalization and all this. So I went for strike for 3 months, and then we kind of went through it. So anyway, so after that my boss helping me to find, already I was very well trained. So I went as an instructor to Buffalo Children's Hospital for 1 year. But unfortunately the boss there, Dr. Lambert, he died. And so again it was kind of murky. So then what was interesting that, and you see it in the book, from Boston to Buffalo, I rented a rider car, you know, a truck. And so, as a doctor, I drove a truck, a bloody big truck, you know, which was, I never did anything like that, you know, so it was again another experience. And we came to Binghamton, my son was here, and Judy was driving our personal car with Patricia. And we came to Binghamton, and the light is showing up that no gas, no gas. And we were on a kind of a hill. I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? But then the hill kind of let me go down, and there was a gas pump, you know. So these are the chances. But then I was at Downstate Medical Center for 4 years, but there was a political struggle between the professor and the staff. They wanted to more private practice, and he didn't want to allow that. So on a meeting in New York, I met a chief of pediatric cardiology in New York that I'm not happy there, that I would like to, and so he told me, look, on Long Island there is a heart center, they are looking for somebody who is good in pushing the catheters for children and making the diagnosis. So indeed, to make a long story short, I went there and I spent at St. Francis Hospital almost 20 years. And it was excellent. You know, I was in charge of the cath lab. We published things on the World Congress of Pediatric Cardiology, and had excellent almost 20 years. And then in 1985, President Reagan and his wife Nancy brought from South Korea 2 Korean children for heart disease, and we had a gift of life program. That means we were treating some foreign children for free, myself and the surgeon. I did the diagnosis, the surgeon fixed the heart. And so they gave us these 2 kids, and it was, the newspapers were full, and you know, and then Nancy came to our hospital and was thanking us that we did this job. We gave her a big dinner at Waldorf Astoria in New York, you know. Again, she came, and I told Arpeggio, you know, the perfume from Nancy. You should smell it. And then we were invited to South Korea, our team. And we took an echo machine there, and we examined 500 children, you know, in 1 week. And the women from all over came with children on their back in kind of like a rucksack, you know. And then we chose 300, and they took to our hospital, heart center, and you know, I made the diagnosis, and the surgeon fixed the heart. It was all free, you know. And so it was very rewarding. And in New York, it was an advantage, since we are in the Slovak society, that there was a very active Slovak American cultural center. And we came to New York in 1975, and there was still the generation who were emigrated in '68. So they were, you know, intellectuals, and it was a very buzzing group. And we first made a contributions that Colonel Porolecki, who was a Slovak general of French army, came to fight with Lafayette, with Washington, you know, so we built up a tombstone for him in Yonkers. And then I went to 87 to Slovakia. I have seen my former children's hospital in what a horrible condition was there. So we started a heart-to-heart program in children, helped a Slovak child with heart disease, and we collected $100,000 in 2-year period. And for that, 4 doctors went to my friends, whom I was able to, one went to London for 1 year, it was a $20,000 bill. Then one went to Toronto Children's for 6 months, one to Babies Hospital in New York, one went to Paris, surgeon. And this surgeon was most talented, you know. And he then left Slovakia and was 1 year in Boston also, trained, and went to work in Hamburg and in Belgium. And now he, from July 1st, he's a chief of cardiac surgery for children in Milwaukee, you know, in Milwaukee Hospital, Victor Rushka, yeah. So that was a kind of a very rewarding place, and the rest of the money we bought machines and oximeters and catheters and what. And then by chance again in Washington there was a gentleman by name Victor Kugajewski. Never heard of him, But he heard about our foundation Heart to Heart, and he was actually the son of a urologist from Nitra, you know, and that was in 30s, and this Dr. Kugajewski was taking care of Andrei Hlinka. I don't know if that rings a bell. So at that time I started to work with Project Hope, and there was a grant from Agency of International Development, and through the Project Hope and through my again connection to Boston, to the surgeon, chief of surgery, we kind of, instead of Poland, the grant came to Bratislava, you know. And for 2 years, my former colleagues from Children's Hospital in Boston came to train hands-on the doctors, you know, the cardiologists, the surgeon, the anesthesiologist, the eye intensive care unit, you know. And so in 1992, a Children's Heart Center was established. And I went there for teaching and help or whatever. And in 1996, I felt that I'm burned out. So I quit. It was also very emotional because I had a very good standing at that heart center and an excellent relationship with the people. And so you can see in that book my American stethoscope. It's there on one of the last page. And then I started to write books, you know. So first book I wrote about political cleansing at medical school where I was a medical student and where I graduated, which was published not only in Slovak but in English by Columbia University Press under the title The Silent Conspiracy. It's still available on the internet. And then I published in Slovak, mainly for the Slovak leadership, kind of a history of communism in Slovakia, you know, how this kind of totally screwed up the whole nation, and they live now with the consequences of these 40 terrible years. And then a year ago a book was published which I just gave to Evichka, that was in the footsteps of pastimes forever gone. And there I was writing about my family where my ancestors in 1222 got the title of nobility in country of Orava, which is north, by the King Andrew II, the Hungarian king. And then how this all went till my father and my, one of the general, Mesko, was Marshal of Maria Theresia, which is in that book, who was fighting Napoleon, The other was General Radetzky. I don't know if that name tells you something. Was a famous Austrian general, and his march, the Radetzky March, is world famous up today in Vienna. And so it came to my father, who was during the First War. He was graduated in Kežmarok, had finished his high school diploma, and at that time high school diploma was almost like a college, there's not many people with college. And then he married my mom, whose roots are partly in Opava, which is in Silesia, the Austrian Silesia. So there are some German or Austrian blood in my blood. And so my dad went then to fight for First War to Poland, South Poland, Galicia, and then after that he went to Košice, and there the whole story goes on. And then I wrote my last book, which I will try to translate and publish it in English, in English. So if anybody knows about a publishing house or something like that, so this is my American stethoscope, which I received in 1961.
You still have it?
Still have it. It's in my study. So if you come to see me, I will show it to you. So thank you for your attention. I hope I didn't bore you. And I am going to Slovakia in early October to present this book in Košice and then in Bratislava. Now I will bring back a couple of copies if some of you people are reading Slovak, so it will be available, for the nominal price of $15 or so. And so thank you again for your attention.
Was that published in Slovakia?
Yeah, this was published in Slovakia.
Finally.
If you have any questions, go ahead. Yes.
Okay, all these events happened in
Excuse
68.
me?
All these events happened in 1968.
Yeah.
And you were going through this journey. What was your awareness of the political situation in Czechoslovakia on the run-up to the invasion?
Oh, the run-up to invasion.
Yeah, what was your sense? Were you
Yeah, well,
just working?
look,
or?
yeah, in 1948, okay, Czechoslovakia was taken over by Communist Party, okay? It didn't have to go, according to many historians, that it would be part of Soviet bloc. It was a conscious decision of the Communist Party of Czechoslovakia to join the Soviet bloc. They had still the possibility that they would stay, let's say, independent, okay? But when they took it, then all hell broke loose, So that was in 1948. I finished my medical school in 52, so it was very hard, very hard, because like in 48 in the dorm when I was, the communists came to convince, the college and university students, and there were tremendous fights there, and between those who came, communist professors or whatever, who jumped on the bandwagon. And there were I was then in my first and second here at the university when this happened. And so the senior university students were fighting like hell. It was a Catholic dorm, you know. And what happened, they were fighting one evening and next day they were thrown out from the dorm and from the university, you know. It was hard, it was very hard.
Which university did you go to medical school?
Common school. That was just one that time, you know. And so, you know, then the 50s and 60s were tough, very tough, you know. Then they were the witch hunt on many people, you know, like from Prague came the witch hunt on Slovak communists, the so-called, they labeled them bourgeois nationalists, and you know where Husak, Novomesky, Clementif, many others went to jail, even so they were communists up to then. Just, you know, if somebody was telling that you are a bourgeois agent, the end of you, you know, you cannot scratch it off. That's how it was, you know. That, you people cannot imagine these things. But then came the Hungarian Revolution of '56, you know, which resonated, you know, it shook the world, communist world. And then somehow came the Hungarian goulash communism, you know, a little bit of private stuff. Like I wanted to have a nice shoe, so I went to Hungary and there a shoemaker made me a very good shoe, you know. And when I was married, you know, in 1960, in June, so first you had to go to an official, you know, office to the mayor of the county or whatever. But we were believers, so we had to go to church, and I was in charge of the institution. They were sniffing after me like hell, you know. So when in November there was a meeting in Budapest, a congress, medical meeting. So I went with Judy to Budapest, and I had a contact there, and she arranged there that in a little chapel we were married in church, you know. But that was totally secret. My first son was Christian in Banska Štiavnica in secret. Then the priest's sister was his godmother, you know. So you people cannot imagine these things. And then, you know, the 60s started to be so, people were, you know, rebelling, you know, this authoritative stuff, you know. Men, you know, they, in Slovakia especially, they destroyed the Catholic Church, you know. There were thousands of... I was a medical student in 1950 in Žilina. And one day, one night, all the nuns who were running the whole hospital were taken, you know. And we as a medical students were helping out to cover it. And these were thousands of nuns and thousands of priests who were then in different camps, you know, like Podolinec, and many went to Yakimov, you know, to the uranium mines, you know, many. And so the American citizen cannot imagine what was there, you know. But then it went softer, and in the, actually the Prague Spring, the first sparkle, came not in Prague, but in Bratislava, from the communist writers, newspapers around the Kulturny život, the cultural life, who were rebelling against the censorship and everything. And then it went up to Prague. What happened in Bratislava for the outside world was not interesting. Only what happened in Prague. Like in 1988 in Bratislava there was this Sviečková demonstration. That means the dissidents and Catholics and everything were rebelling that they cannot practice a religion. and there was this demonstration with, how do you say,
Candles.
candle demo. You know, and they came with water cannons and everything, and this was all suppressed. Even that was not reported in the Western press. You know, only what happened in Prague. You know, so in '60s there was this bourgeois nationalist stuff, and these guys went to jail, and then it was kind of came to Prague Spring, you know. Yeah, but the Prague Spring, it was a shock to the Eastern Bloc. You know, not only, you know, Dubček, he was raised in Russia. He knew very well Brezhnev. He personally, you know, he was at home in his house and what, and suddenly, under the influence of these writers, you know, Dubček came with the idea of socialism is human face. But that was a contradiction of terms, impossible. You know, because these new guys, but there was a lot of hardliners still. They did not know what to do. And Brezhnev, the Brezhnev doctrine, and Eastern Germany, Walter Ulbricht, you know, and South Hungarian Kadar, and North Poland, the Gomulka. So they were all around. They couldn't accept that some kind of human face and whatever. Impossible. It was always, you know, proletarian dictatorship, you know. People's democracy. Yeah, non-existent. No democracy there. You know? So these were the facts, you know, and so it started till 1989, you know, and thank God that the Soviet Union collapsed and the rest of it. But for instance, till the last minute, Czechoslovakia had the largest communist party in Europe except Soviet Union, you know, largest. Can you imagine? In the Czech lands or Bohemia, you know, when the 48 came, the election came, you know, there the communist socialists won. In Slovakia, the Democrats won. But then they mixed up everything. You know, Slovaks were 5 million, Czechs were 10 million, and the communists won, you know. What can you do? And so it was very difficult, very difficult. Go ahead.
When was the first time you were able to go back to Slovakia, and what was that experience like?
Well, I just briefly mentioned it. My dear mom died in 1985. They didn't let me go, you know, didn't allow me to enter. But then in '87 was the first time when I could go to her grave and to visit my former hospital, which kind of triggered that when I've seen these horrible conditions in the hospital, I was now fully charged in American spirit, so let's do something, not just stay there, you know. So we did the heart-to-heart stuff, you know, and $100,000, you know. That was the first time. Yeah. It was bad, very bad, you know. They were taking you, like I went to see the director of the hospital, and I told her that, you know, we would like to help out, and no interest. And interestingly enough, you know, just to turn the coin in a different way, when we in New York established the heart-to-heart program, and it was a beautifully designed program, there was a bulletin, which is here, the top of it, here, this one, here, you know, and there was listed all the contributions, who gave how much, and I went to lecture to companies.